Ethan Collins gripped the steering wheel a little tighter as he turned onto the quiet street leading to his father's house. Rain drizzled steadily, a cold curtain blurring the streetlights into smeared golden halos. The rhythm of the windshield wipers felt almost hypnotic, each swipe a reminder of the weeks he had avoided this visit. He had not seen his father, Henry, for nearly 4 months, not since the argument over his life choices, the things left unsaid that now felt heavier than the storm outside. The house came into view, familiar yet distant, a place that had once been his refuge but now seemed cloaked in shadows. Ethan parked the car and sat for a moment, listening to the rain hammer softly against the roof. He told himself he was prepared for the awkwardness, that his purpose was simple: check on his father, perhaps share a warm meal, and leave before the weight of old resentments could settle in. But deep down, he knew it wasn't that simple. Pushing the door open, he was greeted by the sharp scent of cedar and the faint aroma of something unfamiliar, spicy and earthy. Ethan paused, frowning. There was a presence in the house beyond the expected solitude of his father. As he stepped further into the living room, the sight stopped him cold. A man, tall, dark-skinned, with a calm, almost magnetic aura, seated comfortably in Henry's favorite armchair. The stranger looked up, meeting Ethan's gaze with eyes that were both direct and unreadable. There was a quiet confidence about him, a casual ease that made Ethan immediately aware of his own unease. "Oh," Ethan started, voice caught between surprise and irritation, "I didn't expect anyone here." The man's lips curved into a faint, knowing smile. "I'm Jelani," he said, his voice deep, warm, with a slight accent that hinted at a life far removed from this quiet suburb. "Henry said you might be coming." Ethan's mind raced. How long had he been here? Why had his father never mentioned him? And yet, there was something undeniably compelling about Jelani, something that made Ethan's pulse quicken without reason. He forced a casual tone. "Right. I'm Ethan. Your dad mentioned you." Henry emerged from the kitchen, towel in hand, looking slightly disheveled but with that familiar warmth Ethan had always associated with him. "Ethan," he said, voice bright, though his eyes lingered a moment too long on Jelani, a subtle hesitation that did not go unnoticed. "You're here. Good timing." Ethan nodded, forcing a smile. "Yeah, thought I'd stop by." He felt the tension in the room, a subtle undercurrent he could not yet name. Jelani's calm gaze followed him as he moved toward the couch, and Ethan felt the prickling awareness of someone watching, studying him. Henry gestured toward the kitchen. "Dinner's almost ready. Why don't you two get acquainted?" His words sounded casual, but the edge beneath them suggested an awareness of a delicate dynamic. Ethan's heart sank a little. He had no idea what he was walking into. Jelani shifted slightly, a fluid, effortless movement that seemed to command the space without effort. "I've heard a lot about you," he said, looking directly at Ethan. Not in a confrontational way, but in a manner that made Ethan feel as if every word, every memory he tried to suppress, was being gently unearthed. Ethan swallowed hard, forcing himself to respond. "Really? All good things, I hope." The stranger's smile deepened, enigmatic. "Mostly," Jelani replied. "Though you seem tense. Must be the weather." Ethan laughed nervously, brushing a hand through his damp hair. "Maybe. But it wasn't just the rain. It was the unease of being caught between past grievances and an inexplicable attraction he couldn't articulate." They exchanged a few more polite words, the conversation skimming over the surface, but beneath each syllable, a tension hummed, a quiet, magnetic pull that Ethan found both alarming and enthralling. Henry left the room for a moment to tend to something in the kitchen, leaving the two men alone. The silence was sudden, heavy, and intimate. Ethan's eyes met Jelani's again. The stranger didn't avert his gaze. Instead, he tilted his head slightly, observing Ethan with curiosity rather than judgment. "You're not used to this, are you?" he asked softly. Ethan's lips parted, searching for a reply, but no words came. How could he explain the whirlwind of emotions he felt? Confusion, curiosity, a spark he hadn't expected, mingled with the sense of trespassing into a story he wasn't supposed to be part of. He simply shook his head, a small, embarrassed gesture. A distant clap of thunder rumbled through the house. Ethan flinched, and Jelani chuckled softly, a low, melodic sound that lingered in the quiet room. "Don't worry," he said. "Everything's fine." But Ethan wasn't sure. Nothing about tonight felt simple. And yet, a part of him wanted to linger, to explore this unexpected tension, to understand why the sight of this man in his father's home had unsettled him so profoundly. Henry returned with dinner, breaking the spell, the aroma of roasted vegetables and grilled chicken filling the room. Conversation turned to trivialities, work, neighborhood gossip, weather, but Ethan's mind was elsewhere. He stole glances at Jelani, who now seemed to occupy not just the space in the room but a space in his thoughts he hadn't expected to grant anyone. As the meal concluded, Ethan excused himself to the guest room. The door clicked softly behind him, and he leaned against it, exhaling in a way he hadn't realized. He was holding his breath. He replayed the evening in his mind, the calm authority of Jelani, the subtle evasiveness in his father's eyes, the strange, magnetic pull that refused to abate. Ethan sank onto the bed, staring at the ceiling, the sound of rain steady and relentless against the roof. He knew, without understanding how, that tonight had shifted something. The visit had started as a simple familial obligation, but now it carried the weight of unspoken desires, hidden intentions, and a tension that would not dissipate easily. Somewhere in the quiet of the house, Jelani's presence lingered, not just in the living room, but in Ethan's mind, an inescapable thought that teased and unsettled him. And for the first time in a long while, Ethan felt both apprehensive and alive, knowing that what he had seen tonight was only the beginning. The morning light came in quietly, pale and uncertain, like it wasn't sure it belonged there. Noah sat at the kitchen table again, the same place where everything had begun to unravel a few hours earlier. The smell of rain lingered through the open window, mixed with the faint scent of coffee gone cold. He hadn't slept, the night had moved slowly, every second dragging him deeper into his own thoughts. From down the hall came the soft creak of a door. Aiden's footsteps followed, measured, slower than last night, but steady. Noah didn't look up when he entered. He just stared at the condensation on his coffee cup, tracing a line through it with his thumb. Aiden cleared his throat. "You're still awake." "Didn't feel like sleeping," Noah said, his voice flat. Aiden stood by the doorway for a long moment before moving to the counter. He poured himself a glass of water, drank half, then leaned against the sink. "You always were the responsible one. I should have known you'd stay up and think it to death." Noah finally looked at him. Aiden looked worn, eyes dim, hair still damp from a quick shower. He wore the same clothes, though less disheveled now. The exhaustion in his face made him look older somehow. "I wasn't thinking," Noah said quietly. "I was trying not to." Aiden nodded slowly. "That doesn't work. I tried that for years." Silence fell again. Outside, a bird called once, brief and distant, before the quiet returned. "I don't know what you want me to say," Noah said. "What happened last night wasn't supposed to," Aiden finished. "Yeah, I know." He gave a short, humorless laugh. "You don't have to explain. I was drunk. You were, being you. Trying to help." "That's not what it was." Aiden's eyes flicked up. "Then what was it?" Noah hesitated, words forming and falling apart in his throat. "It was real," he said finally. "And that's what scares me." For a second, neither moved. Aiden's expression softened, but there was something guarded behind it, as if he were bracing for rejection. That he set the glass down and crossed his arms. "So what now? You pretend it didn't happen? Go back to your quiet life with Clara?" The mention of her name stung. Noah didn't respond. Aiden continued, voice tight. "You know, I used to think leaving this place would make me forget everything. The noise, the fights, the way everyone kept pretending to be fine. But I couldn't forget you. Not for a day." Noah's heart thudded painfully in his chest. "Aiden, no," Aiden said, cutting him off. "You don't get to say my name like that, not after last night." Noah stood abruptly, the chair scraping against the floor. I didn't mean for this to happen. You think I wanted to hurt you? Or Clara? Or anyone? Aiden's jaw tightened. I don't know what you wanted. Maybe you just didn't want to be lonely for once. The words landed hard, sharper than intended. Noah's shoulders slumped, and for a moment, the weight of everything they'd done, everything they couldn't undo, settled between them like fog. Aiden sighed and looked away. Forget it, he murmured. I didn't come back here to start another fight. Then why did you come back? Noah asked, the question slipping out before he could stop it. Aiden didn't answer right away. He stared at the window, watching the last drops of rain slide down the glass. Because I didn't know where else to go, he said finally. And because I thought maybe you'd still care. Noah closed his eyes briefly. I do care. That's the problem. Aiden's voice softened. Then don't say it like it's something to be ashamed of. Noah wanted to believe that, but the guilt had already taken root. Every thought of Clara twisted deeper into him, her messages from last night still unread, her trust still intact. He couldn't stand the thought of how easily he had fractured it. He turned away, gripping the edge of the table. You should leave, Aiden. Aiden blinked, the word striking harder than he expected. Leave? Before Mom and Dad get back. Before this becomes something we can't even look at each other over. Aiden's expression shifted, anger flickering beneath his calm. It already is. Noah met his gaze. Please. For a long moment, Aiden just stood there, breathing shallowly. Then he nodded once. Fine. He walked down the hall without another word. The sound of a zipper, the dull thud of a bag against the floor. Noah stayed where he was, every instinct telling him to go after him, to fix it, to say something, anything, but he couldn't. His throat felt tight, his body heavy. When Aiden reappeared, he was holding his jacket, eyes unreadable. You'll make it easier this way, he said quietly. That's what you're good at, making things easier for everyone else. Noah opened his mouth to reply, but nothing came out. Aiden turned toward the door, hand on the handle. Then he paused, glancing back. You know, I meant what I said last night, he murmured. You were the only one who ever saw me. Even if you pretend not to. And then he was gone. The door clicked shut, soft but final. The silence that followed was suffocating. Noah stood still, listening to the absence of sound, to the echo of Aiden's words replaying in his head. He wanted to chase after him, to undo everything, but the weight of his own choices held him still. He walked to the doorway and looked outside. The driveway was empty again, wet and glistening under a weak sun. A single puddle reflected the gray sky, unsteady, distorted, but honest. Noah sat back down at the table, the coffee now stone cold. He unlocked his phone, staring at Clara's unread messages. Are you okay? I had a weird feeling last night. He typed a reply, deleted it, then set the phone face down. There was no way to explain what couldn't be spoken aloud. The clock ticked softly, the same rhythm as last night, but it sounded different now, like it was marking something that had ended. Noah leaned back, closing his eyes. The memory of Aiden's voice, the warmth of his touch, and the weight of guilt wove together until he couldn't tell one from the other. Outside, the clouds began to clear. Sunlight slipped through the curtains, pale and hesitant, touching the table where two untouched mugs still sat side by side. He looked at them for a long time, then whispered to the empty room, some things you can't fix by forgetting. The light brightened slowly, the house silent except for the fading echo of his words. And somewhere far away, maybe on a road still slick with rain, Aiden was driving toward another kind of quiet neither of them knew how to live with. Noah sat perfectly still, the morning stretching endlessly ahead, and for the first time, he understood that love and regret could live in the same breath, and neither ever truly leaves. The house was quiet, save for the occasional creak of settling wood and the soft patter of rain against the windows. Ethan sat in the guest room, hands folded tightly in his lap, mind racing with fragments of the day, the photographs, Jelani's lingering glances, the unspoken tension that seemed to hum through every corner of the house. He knew he could no longer avoid the truth. He needed answers, and Henry was the first person he had to confront. Ethan stepped into the living room, the air heavy with anticipation. Henry was seated on the sofa, absent-mindedly flipping through a magazine, though his eyes flicked up the moment Ethan entered. "You look pensive," Henry said, attempting a casual tone that Ethan immediately recognized as strained. "I need to ask you something," Ethan began, voice low but firm. "About Jelani, and about you." His gaze held Henry's, searching for the honesty he felt might be buried beneath years of habitual avoidance. Henry sighed, setting the magazine aside. "I suppose this is coming," he admitted, voice heavier than usual. "I didn't expect it to come so soon." Ethan swallowed hard, the weight of the unspoken question pressing down. "Are you involved with him?" Henry hesitated, and Ethan's stomach knotted. There was a pause long enough to fill with unspoken fears and assumptions. Finally, Henry exhaled, a mix of guilt and resignation in his tone. "Yes," he admitted. "But it's not what you think. It's complicated." Ethan's chest tightened. "Complicated?" he echoed, trying to steady his voice. "You've hidden this from me. From everyone. How is that, okay?" Henry leaned back, rubbing the bridge of his nose. "It wasn't about hiding it from you, Ethan. It's personal. Jelani has been helping me through some things. I didn't want to burden anyone, especially you." Ethan struggled with conflicting emotions, betrayal, hurt, and a strange, persistent fascination that refused to be silenced. "Helping you," he repeated, skepticism lacing his words. "Or something else?" Henry's eyes softened, but there was no denial. "There's attraction," he admitted, "and perhaps some connection I didn't anticipate. But it isn't just about that. It's about understanding, support, connection in ways I hadn't realized I needed." Ethan's mind swirled. He wanted to argue, to storm out, to demand clarity, yet a part of him remained inexplicably drawn to the complexity of the situation, to Jelani's presence and the understated allure that lingered in his thoughts. Before he could respond, the soft click of the study door opening caught his attention. Jelani stepped into the room, calm but aware, as though he knew exactly how the confrontation had unfolded. His gaze met Ethan's, steady, almost inviting, and a subtle tension passed between them. "I didn't mean to cause any conflict," Jelani said, voice even, measured. "I only intended to be here when needed. But perhaps some truths were unavoidable." Ethan's pulse quickened. "Unavoidable," he repeated, his voice barely above a whisper. "Is that what this is? A truth you've been hiding?" Jelani's eyes softened, yet the intensity remained. "Truths are complicated, Ethan. And so are connections. We are all navigating them in our own ways." The room seemed to shrink around them. Ethan felt a wave of emotions he could no longer control, confusion, curiosity, attraction, and betrayal all intertwined. He wanted to lash out, to demand everything be explained, yet another part of him, a part he had long suppressed, was drawn to Jelani in a way that defied logic. Henry's voice broke the tension, quieter now. "Ethan. I understand if this is difficult. But there's no shame in truth. There's only courage in facing it." Ethan exhaled, trying to steady himself. He looked at both men, searching for clarity. He realized that this was more than a confrontation, it was a mirror reflecting the complexity of human desire, loyalty, and trust. It was messy, uncomfortable, and yet real. Jelani stepped a little closer, though maintaining respect for boundaries. "You're not alone in this," he said quietly. "None of us are. But the choices we make now define what comes next." Ethan's gaze softened, the storm of emotions settling into a tentative calm. He realized that what had begun as a visit to his father's house had evolved into a moment of revelation, not just about them, but about himself. The attraction he felt toward Jelani wasn't just physical, it was curiosity, admiration, and a recognition of connection that transcended conventional boundaries. That he took a deep breath, the weight of judgment and expectation slowly lifting. I don't know what I want," he admitted honestly. "I just know that I can't ignore what I feel, or what I've seen. Henry nodded, understanding in his expression. And that's fair, Ethan. Life doesn't come with instructions. We navigate it as best we can, and sometimes that means confronting discomfort and desire at the same time. Jelani gave a faint, approving smile. The important part, he said, is honesty. With yourself and with those around you. Everything else will follow, in its own time. Ethan looked from his father to Jelani, the tension in his chest softening into something resembling acceptance. He realized that anger and betrayal could coexist with curiosity and desire, and that the moral clarity he had hoped for was perhaps less important than the willingness to face his feelings head-on. The evening deepened outside, shadows stretching across the living room. Rain drummed softly against the windows, a rhythmic accompaniment to the quiet reflection in the room. Ethan sat down, finally letting the weight of the day settle around him, no longer resisting the pull of uncertainty. For the first time, he allowed himself to consider a path forward, not one dictated by shame or fear, but by honesty, exploration, and understanding. Jelani's presence was no longer merely disruptive, it was a catalyst, forcing Ethan to confront truths he had long avoided. Henry returned to his chair beside the window, quiet but present, a subtle acknowledgement that the family, though complicated, still held space for reconciliation and growth. Ethan looked toward Jelani again, their eyes meeting in a silent understanding. Words were unnecessary. The tension remained, yes, but now it was tempered with respect and a recognition of boundaries and possibilities. The attraction, the intrigue, and the unresolved questions lingered, but they were no longer sources of confusion, they were invitations to discovery. As the night deepened, Ethan finally rose and returned to the guest room. He sat by the window, watching the rain streak across the glass, reflecting on the twists of the day. He knew the path ahead would be uncertain, fraught with emotional complexity, and perhaps moments of discomfort. Yet he also felt something he hadn't expected, a spark of excitement, a curiosity for what could come, and a willingness to face it honestly. And somewhere in the quiet of the house, Jelani's presence lingered, not as a threat, nor merely as a mystery, but as a reminder that life, love, and desire rarely followed simple rules. Ethan realized that this night had changed him. He didn't have all the answers, but he had begun to understand that the truths worth confronting were often the ones that scared him most. The rain continued to fall, steady and unrelenting, washing the world in muted silver light. And Ethan, at last, felt ready to meet whatever came next, not with certainty, but with an openness he hadn't known he possessed.